you need to know how to navigate this. You need to know where things are, orientation, know that you can change it from inches to pixels or whatever. You can change your units right here. Your resolution is here, so you can change that to whatever, whether it's 72, 300, or 150. Now, another thing you'll that's going to come up is color modes. We talked about that in our review for the exam. And color mode CMYK is made for print, while RGB is made for anything digital or that anything that will be seen from a screen. So something that came up is right here. So if we're talking about print, we're going to print whatever we're working on. We'll need to set it up in CMYK, and we'll need to know what size paper is going to be printed on, whether it's letter or tabloid or whatever. So I'm just going to choose letter and press create. All right, so let's start off with the fun stuff. So they're going to ask you, how can you save your file automatically every 5 minutes? So the way you do that is you're going to go to preferences. Now on Apple, you get the preferences from Photoshop and go to preferences right here. Now on your computers, you'll probably go to edit and then you'll be able to scroll down and find preferences. But on my computer, it's right here. So just keep that in mind. You want to go to file handling, but if you just go to general, you can still get the file handling right here. Now mine is already set, which is right here, automatically save, recover information every 5 minutes. You can do 30 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, or you can just turn it off and manually save every time. Okay, so make sure you know that. The next one is metadata. Metadata basically is, um, I'm gonna show you. Well, I'm already here, but let me back up a little bit. Metadata is basically, you can show that your work is copyrighted. You can have tag words or keywords that where if you are looking up your file or you looking up your project in the search engine on your computer, you can have keywords that'll make this file pop up. So that's kind of what the benefits of metadata are. So if I go to file and then file info, this is my metadata information. I can give it, it's like my backstage information where if somebody were to look into the file, like almost like code, or yeah, like coding for a website, they look into the file, they can see my keywords and all this type of stuff. They can see who copyrighted, because if I change my copyright status to copyrighted, I can put my copyright information, all rights reserved. No one can reproduce this without written information from Jonathan Meshack, and yada yada yada. So I can have all that information right here. But the part you need to know about is the copyright status and being able to change this from unknown to copyrighted. Also, public domain. Public domain is, for those of you who never heard of that, public domain is nothing. It means that anybody can copy your work for any reason because you just made this work and you wanted to share it with the world. So that's what public domain is. You can you can have that or you can not have that. Whatever you want to do. I would always copyright my stuff personally. Now, we're going to go over gradients real quick. So you need to know the different types of gradients and the differences between them and how to get there. So by default, I think your gradient panel or your gradient tool is here. If you don't see it, you want to click down where the paint bucket is, and then you'll get to it there. But it usually is right here. So by default, you'll have a linear gradient, and that just means it goes from one color to the next. And um, and you guys, if you have a question, please let me know. You can raise your hand in the meet. I think I'll hear the alert. Sometimes I've been having problems with that. But anyway, linear is your basic gradient, goes from one color to the next in a straight line, hence the name linear. Then there's the radial, which goes in a circle. Then there is your angle, which has this really, really cool effect. Then we have your reflected, which basically speaks for itself. It reflects, yeah. Then, last but not least, we have our diamond. Yep. So, um, next thing on the list is the content aware. We have a whole video on that, and I think that video is longer than 10 minutes, but I'm just going to go do a really, really, really quick version of that. So, with the content aware tool, we can use it two ways. The first way, well, before I even get into that, let's talk about the selection tools, which you're going to need to know about. So there's the rectangular marquee tool, which allows you to select a region with a rectangular shape or a square shape. Then there is quick selection tool, which allows you to use your this tool like a brush, and you can add almost like a brush stroke, and it's just selecting similar colors to what, or similar pixels to what you click on. Okay. Then if you hold that down, you can get to your magic wand tool, which allows you to click on a pixel and it tries to find all other pixels that are like that is connected together. But if you uncheck contiguous, then not only will it get the pixels that are next to each other connected, it will get all the pixels throughout the entire artboard. So let's say if I clicked on this white cloud, you'll see that the white and some of the sheep are selected as well because it's going throughout the entire um, artboard. Then last but not least, your magic wand, which allows you to create your own selection um, like so. Now that I have this selected, I'm just going to use my content aware tool by going to where the spot healing brush is, and I'm just going to hold this down and select content aware. Right now I have the mode set on move, and if I just move this over here, what happens is this. Now it looks like there was nothing there except for that little glitch right here. It looks like there was nothing there, and this looks like it was supposed to be here the whole time. Now, to fix these little glitches, which will likely come up in some way, I can go to my spot healing brush tool and just click this area and kind of clean it up, and it'll help me. But if that's not strong enough, then what I would do is select this right here. Let's get a little bit more, and I would get my patch tool, and I can just drag this over here, and now it's trying to copy this area and blend it with the area that I have selected. And voila, even this little line that you can barely see, I would go back with my spot healing brush and clean that up. I will probably make it a lot smaller so it can be less destructive. And that's content aware. Speaking of destructive, so there are destructive ways to handling your files in Photoshop and non-destructive ways. You need to know the difference. So if I were to go to image adjustments from here and change levels, um, other than not being able to undo, or if I couldn't undo, this would be a destructive way of um, just making an edit to this photo because I can't undo it other than just using undo. Now, the way I can do this without it being destructive is go to my adjustments panel. So if I go to window and then go to adjustments, which is already selected, it will pull up my levels right here where I can make edits, make changes, then go work on the file, do a lot of other stuff, and then look at it and say, oh man, I should have never ruined my picture with levels. Let me delete that. Now I can just drag this to the delete, to the trash folder, to the trash icon, and then now it's deleted. So that's a non-destructive way. Another non-destructive way of editing your photos is using your layer mask. So if I wanted to, as a matter of fact, I'm going to show you a way to use the layer mask in just a second. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to turn this into a regular layer by um, clicking on that lock. So notice my background layer. The only thing that really makes a background layer a background is it being the very bottom layer and it being locked. So as soon as I unlock it, it's just a regular old layer. So now let's say I crop this, right? This is my cropped file. Um, right here it says delete cropped pixels. So now I just destroyed those pixels. And then let's say my file change, my file size that I inserted this picture in was about right here, right? And I needed everything that's on the bottom and I needed everything that's on the side. So I can't scale this image, but I would have to make the image itself extended up higher. How can I do that? Well, let me show you. One, I can just copy this layer first. I press Command J. And then on this bottom layer, I will scoot this up. I'm just pressing the up arrow right now. Now, for most of this, I won't have a problem. This is where my layer mask is going to come in. So if I grab this top layer, put the layer mask on, and get my paintbrush, I have my softness at 0%. I'm going to just paint on here to kind of smooth this out so it can blend. And this is stuff that we went over in class before, so this shouldn't be your first time seeing this. But then once I get over here, you'll notice that, yikes, that doesn't look right. So this is where some of that other stuff comes in. I'm going to hide this layer. Now this is another thing that's going to be on the test, how to hide and lock layers. So I'm going to hide this layer right here, and I'm just going to get rid of my mountain, or this part of my mountain, because that's the only part that I need to get rid of. So I'm just going to grab this, and I could, well, let's make this shape a little bit. Hold up, let's right here. And then I think I'm just going to use my patch tool. I can use other tools, but I'm going to try to use the patch. And let's see how it looks. Hold on. Let's see how it looks once I add this back. Alright, so it's better. It could be better, but it could also be worse. But that's a way to do that. So I extended the top that way. Yeah. So, and remember, this is just a crash course. I'm not trying to make everything perfect. Um, let's see what else. am I missing in just this part? Okay, yeah. So since we're talking about layers and all that, let's group these layers. How do you group layers? You select both of these at the same time and just press Control G, or you can right click it and go to group layers or group from layers. And you can change the name when you do it this way. Now, if I'm press Control G, if I wanted to change the name, I can just double click on the text right here and say, call it background, because this will be my background image. Then I can lock this layer because I'm not going to edit this image at all anymore. Now, something that's going to come up is going to be blend modes. So if I wanted to change the, well, I wanted to, I'm gonna just show y'all what I'm talking about with blend modes, because you guys already know this is pretty much just a review. So I'm just gonna select um, my vector shape tool, or what is it called? Rectangular tool, but this is basically a vector shape. And when I create this rectangle, I can change it to a different color, or better yet, I'll pick a different color. I'll pick brown. All right, so now I can use this layer almost like a filter. Well, exactly like a filter, by selecting a different blend mode, or yeah, different blend mode. Also, I can change the opacity of the blend modes, and etc. Okay, so that's basically um, the extent of what you need to know at blend modes. Some of them add light, some of them take away light. When you're dealing with multiply um, and overlay, they are almost opposites. So let's say if I had black with overlay, um, what that does is basically just darkens everything and has a darker tint. But with overlay, if I were to have white selected, it treats white as if white does not exist. So if I have multiply and white selected, notice as I change the opacity, nothing happens. Okay? You don't, I guess you probably don't need to know that on the exam or anything, but um, it is good to know, and I just wanted to share that with you. All right, so the next thing I want to share with you will be something else that cool that comes from this rectangular, well, not the rectangular, but these vector shapes right here. So if I hold down here and go to my custom shape tool, I can actually create not just custom shapes, but um, these presets right here. Like, they have pre-designed shapes that I can just select and create. Now, if I just create it like this, what's going to happen is it's going to be distorted. So I need to hold down the shift key, and then I can change it to whatever color I like, and voila. So let's say, now the other thing we need to talk about is your layer styles. So if I double click right here, or my layer, then I get my layer styles. I'm just add a drop shadow, and let's also add a stroke to this, because why not? Alright, so let's make sure this, yeah, the stroke is on the outside, and we're going to make it smaller, barely noticeable for now, and press OK. Now, you need to notice the difference between this regular opacity and the fill opacity. And with the fill opacity, I can remove everything but what I created in my layer style. So if I were to, well, Okay, if I do my regular opacity, it just, gets rid of everything, including what's in my layer style. But with the fill opacity, it gets rid of only the layer itself. So all of my layer styles are still there. That's why you can still see the stroke and the shadow, which is pretty cool because now I can have an effect that looks like this, and it was done fairly easy. Like, only took a few steps. And then even if I change the color mode on that, look at that effect. What? Shut your mouth. People will be like, "Oh, I'm so amazed." But anyway, um, now let's move on. I did that. Oh yeah, last thing with the layer styles. Bevel. Bevel will probably come up. Just know that it's under here, and that you can put in specific numbers right here where you want your stuff to be. Another thing about something I forgot to mention earlier with your when I was talking about the background is threshold. So if I'm dealing with threshold, right? Let's hide this layer. Um, let's say I'm dealing with threshold through the top layer, and the only thing I really want you to know is that you can put in a specific number right here. Of course, you can edit this way, but you can literally specify what number you want right here. So that's all you really need to know with that. So let's delete that. And then I want to move on one more time. Let's go back to this. And let's say I wanted not just one flower, but I wanted two flowers. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to pick a different flower, and I'm going to create this. But I want it to look exactly like that one. How can I do that? All I have to do is copy my layer styles by coming over here, selecting this layer, pressing right click on it, and copy layer style, and then paste layer style. And notice it even changed my fill opacity to 50%, just like the other one. All right, so um, that's that. And I'm checking my notes, double checking, make sure I went over all that stuff. Went over that. Y'all, we mostly finished. We're almost finished. Just got a couple of things. Yep. Oh, something that I forgot to go over in that first video that I made, which I might not even upload now, is how to export my individual layers. So like, let's say if I have all these in here and I have all these layers, but I want to save the file, but somebody is using this for like a website or something, and they need all of my files, but they need them in layers. They need the flowers separately, they need the background separately, they need the filters separately, they need everything separately. So I would export, go to File Exports, and I would go to Layers to Files, which would allow me to save each one of these layers as a separate file. Okay? And yeah. Now, what else? Oh, yeah. Let's say for some reason I like this, but I wanted to turn it the other way. Of course, I can get my transform tool, right? And I could rotate it. But what if that's not enough? What if I need to flip it? I can right click and go to flip horizontally, and I can also go to flip vertically if I wanted to, and that's a way to do that. With this being a flower, you don't see it that well, but trust me, that's how you flip your image horizontally and vertically. And I'm trying to go through everything, make sure I got everything before I switch to the next file. Alright, so we really just got two more things, and that's it. The next thing that we're going to talk about is typography. So, a few things you need to know with typography, uh, and I'm going to show you a couple of things even before we get into typography. One is rulers and guides. So if you open your file that has no rulers, then you can't create guides. So how do you get your rulers? You press Command R, or you go to View and then select rulers. Now that you have rulers, you can create guides. This is what they're talking about when they're talking about guides. So I can select from each ruler, so I can select horizontal or vertical guides. Now if I get my text tool, I'm going to type and you can't see that because my text is not visible because it's white. Alright, there we go. Now what you see right now is where my guide is right here. That is basically my baseline for my text. This part of my text is my X height. It's basically the so the baseline is where the text sits. The X height is basically the average lowercase font height, and even this will have a baseline and a X height as well. So knowing what a baseline is, now you can learn what ascenders and descenders are. Descenders are just basically the part of the text that goes below the baseline, and ascenders are the part of the text that goes above the X height. Now, leading and tracking, we went over that before as well. And let's go to character. If you don't see character, where do you go? You go to Window and you select character, and character pops up. Now, my tracking is the even space between each letter within a word, or yeah, within each word. Now that's my regular tracking. My kerning is the space between just two letters. So if I wanted to add, or if I wanted to add more space or take away space, I can do it with kerning. And kerning in Photoshop, I just hold down the Alt key and press the right or left arrow to add and take away space between those two letters. Now, if I wanted to do that with just this word, I would highlight this and I would do my tracking, which will evenly change the space, which is right here. And that's the way I do it. Now, my leading is not the opposite, but it's pretty much kind of the opposite. Instead of doing it, the space between each letter, it's the space between each baseline. So once I have my text selected, if I go to my leading right here, I can add more space between those baselines, or I can take away space between the baselines and bring them closer together.